Do you know what the two great lies are? Number one, the check is in the mail. Number two, I'm from the Internal Revenue Service and I'm here to help. When you hear those words, you're not thinking that's going to necessarily be much in the way of help. Well, I worked at the Internal Revenue Service for 28 years. I was one of the first business valuers hired, and I was hired right here in Chicago, Illinois. And they moved me up to Minneapolis, St. Paul. And a few years later, given the growth of work that I worked on with estate and gift, intellectual property, mergers and acquisitions, allocation of purchase price, I became the manager. And I grew that group to 21 technical professionals in 3 years because of the demand. And that group then began to focus as a special litigation support group from Portland and Seattle to St. Louis and Denver out to Pittsburgh. And at any given time, we had 10 to 12 cases docketed for court. 90% of those with their U.S. tax court. The other 10% were in U.S. District Court or U.S. Court of Federal Claims. I then moved into research. And I brought on board PhD statisticians and economists, and we looked at what we could do to improve voluntary compliance with the tax system looking 2 years out. I then became a controller, an executive. We had some family health issues. As an executive, you have to be prepared to go wherever you need to go at any given time. And I said, I'm no longer there because of some family health issues, so I became what was called a territory manager in the reorganization in the year 2000. I ended up being one of the territory managers. I was the Midwest territory manager for business valuation and engineering type work. And then within the engineering and business valuation function, we had 12 specialties, so to speak, and I headed up business valuation nationally for the IRS. I had a mantra as a manager. My mantra was, once a week, catch your managers and catch your employees doing something right and tell them specifically thank you for what they did. Number two, get them the resources they need, i.e. do not micromanage. And number three, my mantra was, give them a chance to shine. I was humbled because at the IRS as a frontline manager, I was an IRS Civil Servant of the Year as a frontline manager. You're nominated by your employees for that, and then it goes up for approval, and I was lucky to receive that. And I had that same thing as a territory manager later in my career. I've since learned that Baker McKenzie uses that same mantra. They charge $1,000 an hour for it. And I went, oh, what do you know? I'm now in the consulting field. Oh, I could use those kind of things. Well, having said that, given that mantra, heading up business valuation, I would bring together a team where I'd go to my executive level in Washington and say, I asked my employees, what do you think we ought to be working in business valuation? And then we would come together with a small team. We'd form a team that says, these are the things we should work on. Discounts for lack of marketability, valuing S corporations, reasonable compensation, penalties on appraisers, number of different things. I would present those to our national office. They would say, okay, you can form a team. That team would work on this given topic, form 10 to 12 people, work on it for a year, 2 days per month. At the end, a paper is written. The idea was maybe someday we'll make those available to the public, but it's going to improve the quality of work at the IRS. 3 of those have now been released by the IRS. Discount for lack of marketability, valuing non-controlling interests in S-corps, and reasonable compensation. They're now out in the public. When I talk about how to work with the IRS, I'm going to bring something else to mind here and to light with you, and that is how you bring conflict to resolution with the IRS or anyone else. 3 years ago, some PhD neuroscientists, and I'm from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul now, asked me to become part of their team, where they brought in a person on leadership. These are PhD neuroscientists looking at what's going on in the brain, and they're way down in the weeds. And I was brought on as a mediator, negotiator guy. I've been working with them now for 3 years. I've incorporated what they've taught me on how our brains are receptive to conflict resolution. In my most recent book, it's at the printer right now, called Peaceful Resolutions. I think it's the best book of the 10 books that I've written. But I'm going to go through some things with you. That's my background. And I guess I also want to mention, I've been a mediator since the year 2000. I've been a mediator with the Supreme Court in Minnesota since 2004. I volunteer twice a month in Housing Court and Conciliation Court. I volunteer regularly with community mediation. I've mediated between gangs. I've mediated in public housing. I mediate regularly with my clients, business to business and business to IRS. I also am part of negotiation, business to business and business to the IRS. Those are just some acronyms behind my name there. That's what I do for a living today. That's my contact information. And I would say to you, if I can help you with anything, I get 3 calls or so every week from all around the country. I answered one yesterday for a person located in Pennsylvania. It's very regular. I do this for nothing. You call me on the phone, I will talk with you. I'm not charging you. Typically, I can help you resolve issues in about 15 minutes with many issues with the IRS. So keep that in mind. Talk to me at any time. And if I've got a network now of about 4,000 in constant contact and about 2,000 on LinkedIn. I blog regularly. My blog last week, where I talked about the changes going on in the IRS right now, got 614 likes. That's a new high for me. So I'm pretty excited. Oh, wow, 614 likes. That's cool. But I do that because I'm trying to help people like you.